Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this, let me turn on my camera. Welcome this meeting of the Special Council. Madam Clerk, do we have any regrets for this evening?
Yes, Mayor Burton, we have regrets from Councilor O'Mara.
All right. Council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, I don't see any. Council and public, we have no consent items of public or confidential nature. The only matter on the agenda tonight is the public delegations on the mayor's proposed 2025 budget. Our first delegation is Kevin Rajewski on behalf of Safe Streets Halton. And we have another delegation after that. Is Mr. Rajewski here or online? Madam Clerk, what do you suggest?
I think we move on to the next delegate.
All right. Our next delegate is Carol Murphy. Ms. Murphy, are you here? Welcome. Please come to the front and feel free to move the microphone so that it's comfortable for you.
Thank you.
And we look forward to your information.
Why I'm here, Mayor, is I've lived in Oakville for 43 years. I'm a senior. I'm 75 years old. I've worked and contributed not only to the community, but to this country in many ways. And I'm very concerned that at every level of government, there doesn't seem to be an understanding that the Canadian dream is dying because Canadians at every level are being taxed too much. That everywhere I go in this community, and I know many of the people in this community, and my mother was a nurse at the Oakville Trafalgar Hospital for many, many years, they are telling me that they're struggling to make ends meet. I go to the bank, and the tellers tell me they're working 2 jobs just to pay rent. And the girls are saying, you know, I pay $2,100 a month rent, and it's not much of an apartment. And I'd like to do better and have something better, but I'll never get in a home. And then I go to Metro or to Basics or the grocery stores, and the ladies that I've known there over 40 years say, you know, same kind of thing. They're working 2 jobs, and they're trying to make ends meet. And I can go on about it. So I'm here as a Canadian. My father was a veteran, and I've paid taxes all my life, and I just want to inform all the members of council, please rethink the taxes. And I heard that you're going to increase the property taxes, and I don't know whether it's 4.8% or 5.8%. That's beyond what the inflation rate is and beyond with the majority of Canadians get as an increase. And many of the people have not even had an increase in a long time, including some of the security people that are working tonight. So all I'm just saying, there is a lot of people struggling, and I wanted to come forward and ask politicians at every level, not just, you know, the municipal level, can you rethink your budget? Can you look at how you can manage within the budget you have and where there are not essential services that can be reduced to alleviate the burden on the taxpayers? That's why I'm here, okay? And it's not, as I said, it's not just at the municipal level. I know it's at the federal, it's at the provincial, and you have other demands that have been imposed on you by the province and by the feds, and I know that. But sometimes you have to push back, and you have to look at the people who elected you. You have to look at the taxpayers and their burden. So I hope all of you will reconsider the proposed budget and especially the tax increase that you're proposing. I think that captures everything I want to tell you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Murphy.
Okay.
Is Kevin Rajewski here? Kevin, you're next. Welcome. We look forward to your information.
Good evening, Council. I am, as you might remember, Kevin Rajewski from Safe Streets Halton, here to give our organization's feedback on the Mayor's proposed 2025 budget for the town of Oakville. Next slide, please. As a quick refresher, our organization is a grassroots volunteer organization dedicated to making the streets in Halton safer for all users. Next slide, please. First, let's talk about traffic calming. The progress the town has made so far on traffic calming is amazing. In my community, Joshua Creek, I've seen new pedestrian crossovers installed, I believe a year and a half ago, and they are constantly used. And the behavior of drivers has also changed, with them being a lot more cautious when approaching these crossovers. So it's really amazing seeing 15 more of these pedestrian crossovers being budgeted in for 2025. Next slide, please. One thing we recommend the town look at in regards to this is possibly installing raised crossovers at areas with especially high foot traffic. So Oakville Downtown, Kerr Village, Bronte Village, Palermo Village, Uptown Core, etc. These raised pedestrian crossovers not only serve as a pedestrian crossover, but also as a speed bump to limit vehicle speeds. So it can increase accessibility for pedestrians while also just generally creating a more pedestrian-friendly environment. So if any of these 15 planned pedestrian crossovers are planned to be in a high foot traffic area, this is definitely something we recommend looking into. Next slide, please. Moving on, I've also seen new signs about upcoming speed cameras right near my high school, actually, which is great considering the amount of students that cross the road before and after school, but also during lunch to grab a bite at a restaurant right across the street. It is simply unacceptable for any drivers to be going above the speed limit in an area which has so much foot traffic, and that will be coming in January. However, the town should try to ensure that any profit made from this program is reinvested back into more traffic safety projects and programs. A lot of people criticize speed cameras for being a simple cash grab for a municipality. But if all the profit made from this program is reinvested back into even more traffic safety improvements, no longer does it become a simple cash grab, but it becomes a commitment by the town to making our streets safer. In fact, Burlington is already planning to do this with their upcoming automated speed enforcement program, and so should Oakville. Next, please. Moving over to active transportation, there's also some great progress being made here in the 2025 budget. The biggest thing being finally some funding for the Midtown West Active Transportation Bridge. I like to cycle, and a few times now I have cycled with friends from my area in Joshua Creek down to Lakeshore, sometimes even as far as Bronte or Burlington downtown. I did that once with a friend. It was very fun. But the most scary part, the most frightening part of this trip, every single time, is crossing the QEW on Trafalgar. From the incredibly loud noise from all the cars on both Trafalgar and the QEW to crossing the highway on and off ramps where there are fast cars that do not stop for pedestrians, it is scary beyond belief. So it's really great seeing some funding finally being put into this. It frankly should have been built yesterday, and I guess part of it did with the pier that is in the middle of the QEW there, but we need that bridge. In addition, it will also pretty much connect Northeast and Southeast Oakville for pedestrians and cyclists because currently it's very disconnected. This bridge, however, should definitely be built before any future Midtown residents move in because it provides that key connection with Oakville Place. When the first few developments are completed in Midtown, obviously there will be a lack of retail in the area. That's just the nature of building a new community. But the thing is, there's this nice mall that's right across the highway, so ensuring that safe key connection for all the residents as soon as they move in is key. So if there's any way we could speed up the construction of this bridge, that would be great. Next slide, please. Finally, we get to transit. Again, great improvements in the 2025 budget, especially with 20-minute off-peak service on Dundas. There are so many new, upcoming, and future developments along Dundas. So it's great that we're providing these future residents with frequent access to transit, which will reduce congestion and just overall provide a better quality of life for these residents. One thing that we were pretty puzzled by, however, was that Trafalgar is actually getting a decrease in service, which is pretty interesting because currently Trafalgar is served by 3 routes. You have the Route 5, you have the Route 24, and you have the Route 1. Route 5 has 15-minute frequency, Route 24 has 20 minutes, and Route 1 has 60 minutes during peak hours. But now let's compare this to what's proposed, which is only 30 minutes during peak hours. I take the bus often along Trafalgar, trying to get to the GO station, for example, and these buses always have people in them, and a good amount of people of them, so there clearly is the demand for this kind of frequency that is currently provided. But the 30 minutes will obviously be a decrease. Another thing that's important to keep in mind is that with Dundas being 20 minutes and Trafalgar being 30 minutes, there will be a not great connection between the two routes. There are so many riders that transfer that will transfer between the 2 routes in the future. I take the 24 often, and there are so many people. In fact, the majority of riders stay on at Uptown Core, seeking to get from somewhere along Dundas to somewhere along Trafalgar or vice versa. With this huge number of transfers that will be occurring in the future, it's important that the 2 routes are the same frequency. Because I'll give you an example here. Based on the frequency, let's say I took, and I'm just using random times here, but with the right frequencies, I took a 9:30 a.m. bus, Dundas bus, and wanted to transfer to Trafalgar and Uptown Core. I end up waiting 5 minutes, let's say. Okay, and then now let's take instead the 9:50 bus. Well, with these frequencies, now it becomes 15-minute transfer. If I take it at 10:10 a.m., it becomes a 25-minute transfer, which is a huge, long transfer time that wastes a lot of time for riders and will push them out of transit and into cars instead. But if these routes are the same frequency, riders can count on the bus they need being there when it's needed every single time, obviously subject to traffic conditions and such. And if the length of Route 1 going all the way up to the 407 is the cause for such low proposed frequency, it's important to remember that we can have a separate route, like a 1A, that only goes between Oakville GO and Uptown Core. Because obviously that's where the vast majority of riders are at the moment, since there isn't any transit infrastructure north of Dundas. And the normal Route 1 can run as every 2nd or 3rd bus. This would save a ton of money and service hours, and while still providing higher frequency along Trafalgar between Uptown Core and Oakville GO. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the proposed 2025 budget is incredibly positive and a massive step forward in terms of making the streets in Oakville safer. With even just 1 or 2 of the improvements mentioned in this presentation, it can become even better. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the presentation. You have a lot of good material there, and I think there's a lot of alignment between what you're asking for and what we're working on. Mm-hmm. 2 things. One, the automated speed enforcement does in fact just pay for itself, so there is no cash grab. Oh, okay. As part of that program, the funds that are generated basically are paying for the program itself, and early on there'll be some actually reverse funding where we're putting money into it, not taking money out of that program to make it happen at the beginning. The other thing I asked for you, or the other thing I'd like to ask of you is, you had a whole bunch of feedback about transit, and it looks to me like you might be working off some speaking notes. Could you share those speaking notes with us?
Oh, absolutely.
That would be very helpful to me. I don't know whether our transit director is online this evening or not, but there was some conversation there about the transit frequency, particularly along Trafalgar Road, and I wonder if Adrian, who's now online there, if he would be able to speak to the transition process that's upcoming as part of the transit work that we're planning for next year.
Through you, Mayor Burton, and thank you for letting me speak. The transition there that the delegate has spoken about is being planned for 2025. However, I'm not sure that the frequencies identified by the speaker are actually correct. We haven't finalized the frequencies on both the Dundas and the Trafalgar corridors, as there are planned readjustments of the services. So I'm more than happy to have a discussion with the delegate, as we've met before. We've had some great discussions about transit. However, those frequencies are not finalized and or identified by staff at this time. So we are looking to have that change, but not to decrease services at all for any of the main trunk corridors. Thank you.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just found those. I found the frequencies on the community infrastructure presentation. I believe it was under the special, the attached items at the bottom of the presentation. But if those are not finalized, then that's good to hear, and hopefully we can push for the right direction in terms of that.
So thank you very much for that. If you would be willing to email us the speaking notes, that would really help us in terms of identifying the locations and routes that you've talked about, and we can carry on some further conversation with our Director of Transit about what is being planned and how that might be tweaked. As he said, some of it's not firmed up yet, and so if there's feedback that's available to us now, maybe we can fix things.
Okay, 100%.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I'll call for any other delegations who might be with us who want to speak. Going once, going twice, going thrice. I'll confine it to table. Council, it'd be in order for a motion, a mover and seconder for receipt of the information. Councillor Elgar and Councillor Knoll. Any opposed? There being none, that's carried. It's now in order for a mover and seconder for the consideration and reading of the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Longo, Councillor Grant, thank you. Any opposed? There being none, that carries, and the confirmatory bylaw is considered read and passed. And that ends the business of the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention. It's been terrific working with you, and we'll see the budget again on the 19th, unless legal staff and I can figure out a way to expedite it to the 16th. But I'm not holding out any big hope for that change, but I did get a request earlier today to consider that. So we'll get back to you quickly on that if there's going to be a change. And good night, everybody.